Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast. If you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as we're now on the road to 500 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. If you love sports content, sports talk, anything from sports betting to updated rankings every week, it's all right here on the Talk of the Town podcast. And here today, we're going to be going over a few things. The Sherrone Moore situation in Michigan. What a hell of a situation that's turned out to be. Going to be answering some of your guys' questions that I typically answer on Why Not Wednesday, but was not able to get an upload up yesterday. As I previously mentioned this week, I have a hell of a week coming up. I have my 22nd birthday tomorrow. Finals week for college this week, of course. I had a finals that was due yesterday. That's why I wasn't able to get any content up. And of course, about an hour and a half or so ago, I had to call the ambulance for my grandma, who's living with us now, and thoughts and prayers there, man. It's just been a hell of a week. So let's just get right into it here today with the first question. What if the Browns get the #1 overall pick in this year's draft? Do we pick Mendoza and build around him, or do we stick with Sanders and try to build around him? Personally, I would stick with Shedeur Sanders. Look, I know maybe he hasn't necessarily lit the world on fire, but he's also shown some sort of signs of life. And I will say, to where the media and the fans and the players are backing Shedeur Sanders, maybe not necessarily Kevin Stefanski, even though he did name him the starter, but clearly he does not like Shedeur Sanders, right? I think myself and a lot of other people included have said the same thing. People wouldn't be saying that for no reason. I know there's always speculation, but when 95% of the media and people agree that Kevin Stefanski, including the fan base, does not like Shedeur Sanders, clearly there's something there. So I don't think Kevin Stefanski will be the coach of the Cleveland Browns next year. Now, whatever head coach comes into that organization, look, honestly, I don't trust the Browns organization as far as I can throw them to make the right decision usually. So, but personally, I would stick with Sanders and build around him, because the Browns quarterback carousel has been pretty ridiculous, to be honest with you. Between now Deshaun Watson, who is really pushing the Browns to stay, and he wants to keep playing. I don't think the Browns are really counting on that. And unfortunately for Cleveland, what's been the situation for years now is that his contract is atrocious. He probably is the worst contract in NFL history, to be honest with you. And if they were to cut him next year, it would be like $121 million in dead cap or something, just insane. So they don't really have a choice but to keep him. Now, whether or not they play him, I don't even really think he's playable anymore. I mean, the last couple of games, a couple of years we've seen him, Deshaun Watson. I don't really know if there's ever been a positive moment with him on the Cleveland Browns, to be honest with you. I mean, he's looked washed even when they put him in. I can't imagine all of a sudden he's going to step in now after multiple ACL injuries. And even when he was playing before, again, he was one of, if not the worst starting quarterback in the NFL when he was playing. I mean, he'd rival J.J. McCarthy, who came off a pretty good week last week against Washington as the worst quarterback in the NFL. Worst starting quarterback in the NFL, at least. I mean, he's been terrible. So I don't even think he's playable. And you have a situation now with Shedeur to where, look, in most drafts, he was projected to go like top 5 in pretty much every mock draft. But we know the bad interviews and just a lot of teams were not interested within his behavior. Now, I will say I've been very impressed with the way he's handled meetings. I do think he's learned from his situation in terms of how far he dropped in the draft. It was a learning experience for him. I could imagine it was probably pretty demoralizing. And I think, especially seeing his press conferences and stuff like that, these reporters have put him in some pretty shitty spots in terms of some of the questions they've asked him. And he's even acknowledged it, saying, man, is there a reason you're asking me that, or whatever it is? Like, I don't know, this question, like, why the hell are you asking me this? Of course, he didn't say it like that, but, I know that's what he's thinking. They're putting him on the spot. And he's handled these situations pretty maturely. So I do think there's definitely some positive momentum in terms of riding with Shedeur. Now, Mendoza, in terms of talent and being a better prospect, is better than Shedeur. But at the same time, I do think Shedeur can be a good quarterback in this league. And I even think if you throw Mendoza in the situation Sanders is in right now, you're going to be in a really weird situation with, like, okay, like, we just drafted Dylan Gabriel, which drafting him in the 3rd round, regardless of whether or not they drafted Shedeur Sanders in the first place, was a terrible idea. I mean, most people around the league, I was reading some reports from some executives around sports, scouts, stuff like that, saying that Dylan Gabriel, while he broke some college records and stuff like that, I think he actually has the most games played in college football history. If he doesn't have the most, he has one of the most. Like, he's way up there. I'm pretty sure he did break the record, though, for most starts. That, he was fun to watch in college, kind of a twitchy, little, kind of electric, just fun to watch, but he was not an NFL quarterback. And when he came in and played, he just did not look like an NFL starting caliber quarterback. Now, whether or not he could be a backup in this league for a while, I think a lot of that depends on personality, and he doesn't seem like a bad guy at all. But, the Dylan Gabriel pick was atrocious. Now you're stuck with that. You're stuck with Deshaun Watson. You're stuck with Shedeur Sanders, and then you're going to be stuck with Fernando Mendoza, who I say you should play. If you draft someone number 1 overall in the draft, unless you have, you're never going to be in the situation if you had a prime Aaron Rodgers or a prime Brady or Manning or Breeze or something like that starting. Unless you have one of those guys, it's like, I agree they shouldn't start Shedeur anymore. You might as well just ship him off if they end up drafting Mendoza. I think it just puts him in a weird spot. And I do think when the media, the fan base, the players are mostly positive around Shedeur. Now, there's a lot of negativity around him too. I definitely don't think it outweighs the positivity, but I just think between the Dion, his personality at Colorado and stuff like that, he's a very celebrity-ish when it comes to being an athlete. Like, he is a big-time celebrity on top of being a pro athlete as well. So, there is, of course, a lot of negativity around Sanders as well from his haters, every player's haters as well. But a lot of people back him as well. The fan base, the players, seems like the ownership is starting to kind of back him as well. Maybe not Stefanski quite as much, even though he did name him the starter. But, all that stuff wouldn't be being said for a reason. Clearly, there's something to build around there, I think. And I think, if you trade back to being in into the top 5, you have the Jaguars pick next year, which isn't necessarily going to be the highest pick. It'll probably be somewhere in the low to mid-20s, I'd assume, unless they go on to make the AFC Championship. But nonetheless, they're going to have another first-round pick. So if they were to get the number 1 pick, I'd say, trade back, get even more. Don't trade back too far, because still, at number 1 overall, you have the choice to pick between anyone you want. If you want the number 1 offensive lineman, number 1 receiver, number 1 corner, like whatever you want, I do think they need to draft on the offensive side of the ball. Their offensive line is atrocious. I think they need to draft whoever the best lineman is there at first, and then if they want to take like a receiving prospect with a 20-something overall pick from wherever Jacksonville finishes at, then I'd say that'd be pretty intriguing. But I think personally, I think they should stick with Sanders. I just think, with the whole quarterback situation going on there with Watson and Gabriel and Sanders, it just doesn't seem like a good idea, to be honest with you. Then you put yourself in an even deeper hole there. So, I don't agree with that. So Sherrone Moore with Michigan. Oh my God, this came out of nowhere. And it's a pretty crazy situation as well. Let me just read this article here. This came out last night. Sources have provided me with the graphic details leading up to the arrest of former Michigan head coach Sherrone Moore. During an argument with his wife, Moore threatened to kill himself. He then drove to and broke into the home of his assistant, where he held a knife to his own throat and threatened to kill both himself and the staffer. He was then intercepted at a local church after his wife provided his phone's location to the authorities. He is now in protective custody. Just a tragic chain of events for all involved. On top of the abortion and everything, apparently that happened with one of the other people going to Michigan as well, that was apparently promoted on the staff when he got there. It is a damn mess. Clearly, this guy needs some sort of mental help, and supposedly over the last 36 hours or so, and Michigan and the players kind of noticed that he was acting very strange. Like, there's more reports that are coming out every day by the hour, so At the time of me recording this, maybe something else breaks. Apparently, he has a court hearing tomorrow or Friday or whatever it is. It's coming up really soon. I think it is tomorrow. But this is just a ridiculous situation. And as I previously mentioned, this guy clearly needs some sort of mental help. And as of the last 36 hours, players said he was acting weird. Coaching staff said he was acting really weird. So, clearly, and apparently on the inside as well, they were starting to realize and figure out what was going on. And now this is a whole scandal going on. Apparently, people within the inside of Michigan, the football program, knew what's been going on the whole time. Now, of course, with the situation of him about to commit suicide and stuff yesterday, I don't think they knew any of that was going on, because that clearly was just kind of a spur of the moment thing when he got caught. But I just, with the whole situation with the girl and everything, I don't get into any of that, with the abortion or anything here on the channel. You guys take that as you will. But, as I mentioned, this guy clearly, there's something going on with him. Could now commit suicide, threatened to kill the staffer. And with all of this apparently being within the Michigan organization, that there's reports coming out that people on the inside knew that this stuff was going on, didn't say anything about it. Clearly, Sherrone Moore was covering it up, right? But this, between the Jim Harbaugh thing going on a few years ago, they had the big scandal, and they're talking about, well, now Kalen DeBoer can go and replace Sherrone Moore as head coach. I'm like, with all this shit going on with Michigan and the scandals over the last few years, and now this, which is honestly horrendous. I mean, this is one of the worst things I've heard about the Michigan organization probably ever. I don't know too much of the history of Michigan, to be honest with you. So if there is something that's worse than this, hell, I don't know. But just as of recently, would Kalen DeBoer want to step into the situation? Now with Jim Harbaugh and everything, and now, this situation with Moore, it's like, damn, do I really want to put myself within all of this? This organization's getting a bad rep. Players that are going to transfer, players that are coming out of high school, are they going to want to come here now? There's clearly some shady shit that goes on within this organization, just besides the head coaches. When these people figure out shit on the inside, they clearly don't say anything. And this goes on beyond Michigan, but, it breaks out in Michigan. The news breaks out, and this is clearly bad. Whatever, hopefully this guy ends up getting some sort of help within the system, I can't imagine he walks a free man. And I was actually talking to someone yesterday about this situation, and they were like, well, I wonder if Sherrone Moore is going to get a coordinator job, whatever it is. And I'm like, I think hell would freeze over before Sherrone Moore were to ever get an opportunity to be a coordinator or coach ever again. For one, I think it would just be incredibly awkward between the players, the coaching staff, and it would just give your organization a bad rep. Who the hell would want to be around this guy? If I was a player going to play for, hell, even my local community college, and he was there as a coordinator or a linebackers coach or something, I would want no part of being around there. I'd be like, is there any chance I can go play somewhere else? There's a million other community colleges to play, universities to play. I'm not being around this guy. Do I feel safe? You have to remember, these aren't necessarily adults, pro athletes going into their own situation, and they have millions of dollars already. And, you do have the situation where you have guys like Underwood and shit like that getting paid millions of dollars. The top prospects of the classes can kind of choose wherever they want. But, guys that are a majority of college athletes never even get scouted to be in the NFL. I mean, very few of them, even get a chance to go to the NFL, get undrafted, go in the 7th round, whatever it is. So these guys are on a short leash, and if they see him there, it's that gives your organization a bad rep. No one's going to want to play for you. So, and I just thought it was kind of interesting to bring up, the Henry Ruggs situation, where he got in that car accident. He's serving 3 to 10 years, whatever it is, but supposedly looking like he's going to get out on the shorter side of the stick. Henry Ruggs wants to make an attempt at an NFL comeback. Would any players, let's say if, hell, I'm just saying this as a random example, by the way. I'm not saying they tolerate him going there, but let's say he were to go to the Minnesota Vikings. Kevin O'Connell, could he really look Henry Ruggs in the face and be like, yeah, we want you to play for us? Like, it creates an incredibly awkward tension between your players, the ownership, the fan base. Like, if he were to come back and score a touchdown for your team, like, you're like, oh shit, I'm celebrating Henry Ruggs scoring a touchdown. It's like, I'm celebrating the touchdown, but am I really celebrating Henry Ruggs getting the touchdown? You know, like, that'd be the same as Sherrone Moore were to go coach somewhere else or be a coordinator. It's like, dude, I don't want to be around this guy. Like, it creates an incredibly awkward standpoint. So I don't know if somehow in the later future, if anyone were to think, like, is this guy ever going to get a chance at coaching or coordinating again? I know most people probably aren't thinking like that, but, you know, I had that problem to me yesterday. I'm like, you know, hell would freeze over before this guy ever got another chance to be a coordinator in my local community college, more or less be a coordinator somewhere in Division I or a head coach anywhere. So, you know, that's kind of my thought process there with that. But this is crazy. Michigan's now getting a really bad rep. And like I mentioned, I don't think it's going to be nearly as easy for, you know, DeBoer to opt out of Alabama and not want to be there anymore. Like, they're in the college football playoffs. Now, I don't necessarily know how far they're going to get, but I mean, when I really want to go coach at Michigan with all the shit that's been going on there the last couple of years, I don't know. A lot of these players aren't going to be interested in playing there anymore. Like, that's not necessarily a good spot where you look at these younger guys, these younger kids coming up, 17, 18-year-old people, and they're like, you know, their parents do influence where they go at the end of the day too. Like, it's going to be like, if you have the choice to go play at Michigan or Florida State, you know, it's like, I'm no chance in hell. You know, I don't want my kid playing at Michigan, you know, especially with the shit going on in the last few years. So I think Michigan's in some deep shit, to be honest with you. And hopefully Sherrone Moore, whatever happens, you know, I can't imagine this guy is necessarily going to walk around a free man. You know, maybe he will. I can't imagine he's going to serve a life sentence or anything like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I did just take a law class in college, so, but I ain't a judge or anything like that. So I don't know what the hell this guy's going to get or what's going to happen. We're just going to have to play it by ear. But just hopefully he gets the help he needs, because clearly this guy is not in the right mental state whatsoever. So, yeah. If the Phillip Rivers signing really works out, does it open the door for other guys like Cam Newton, Colin Kaepernick, or maybe even Brady to come back into the NFL? You know, I think the situation's a little different. Like, Brady's almost 50 years old. I've seen the rumors with Brady and even like Gronkowski. You know, he said on a thing, I think it was yesterday or a couple days ago, to where it was like, now, if you offered me $1 million to come take some snaps on the practice squad and play on the practice squad, I'd do it. But, you know, he said it was like a 1% chance of that happening. But even still, like, guys like Brady, I know, like, Cam and them, like, I've seen his interview on his podcast as well. Like, he was pretty pissed off. I think a lot of these guys, they kind of look up now, whether or not like Manning or Brees or any of those guys would ever want to play again. If a team offered them to come and play, they wouldn't do it just because, hell, their arms were falling off of their shoulders. Maybe not Brady, but like Manning and Brees, like, literally couldn't play anymore. Like, their arms were falling off of their shoulders. Like, hell, would they love the idea to come in and play a couple snaps for a game? Oh my gosh, yes. But you know, in terms of wanting to come back and play, you know, I don't necessarily know if those guys would, but like Cam, Andrew Luck, I don't think Andrew Luck he just is completely disinterested in football. He's like a Stanford guy now. He's one of the higher ups there in Stanford in terms of the football program. Seems like he's kind of loving life there. But yeah, I just think with Cam, like, Cam seemed pretty pissed off. Yeah, but the thing is with Cam is, like, the last couple of years of his career, he had the COVID. He had COVID in New England. Then apparently he didn't want to take the COVID vaccine when you were supposed to. That's why New England cut him. But then a few years ago, apparently Robert Kraft wanted to keep Belichick, or not keep Belichick, wanted to keep Newton, but Belichick didn't want him, or maybe it was the other way around, whatever it was. But regardless, like, he's just kind of written the story for the end of his career. Like, unfortunately for Cam, like, he still thought he was a top 5 quarterback in the league when he just really wasn't anymore. Now, Cam, before he ended up getting COVID with New England, he was actually kind of looking like an MVP candidate. Like, he looked really good with New England, but then it just fell apart, especially towards the end of it. They still ended up finishing with like 8 wins or something like that, which was pretty crazy to me. But Yeah, like he went back to Carolina. I don't know if you guys remember that, and he ended up getting benched, and it was just a disaster there. He was clearly he was done. Now, Phillip Rivers, who the hell knows how this? No one knows. We can make predictions. We can say, well, he's 44 years old. We know this isn't going to work. Look, more than more than likely, this thing probably isn't necessarily going to work out how we wanted to. I think it's a really fun experiment. Seeing Phillip Rivers come back, we all love it. I mean, hell, seeing him come back kind of brings me back to my childhood a little bit, to be honest with you. Seeing Phil going out there and ball, whether or not he's actually will still be good. If he has to step in this week against Seattle, I don't think it's going to be good at all. He is not used to taking hits anymore. He hasn't taken a hit from an NFL linebacker or a defensive lineman, an NFL player in like 5 years. He's 44 years old and has a gut like a beer gut on him, like a dad bod. I mean, have you guys seen the clips of him out there throwing in practice? But it was I don't know. He looked incredibly out of shape. I mean, Jesus. He looked like some uncle out there throwing it at a family reunion or something. Now, of course, he's a lot better than some uncles out there throwing at a family reunion, but still, when you're out there playing with the guys that are 22, 23 years old and are at the peak of their powers in terms of being the best athletes in the world, it's different than going out there and playing against your cousins and shit. So, I don't know. I don't know how this thing is going to work out. But guys like Cam, I don't know if it necessarily opens the door for them. One, Shane Steichen is very close with Phillip Rivers. And they were like, hell, let's call up Phillip. Let's see let's see what's going on. They were clearly pretty desperate, and they still are desperate. I'm curious to see what they're going to do towards the end of the season, going into next year, seeing how that turns out, because they have a bit of an issue. This is a bit of a patchwork job right now, but clearly Phillip Rivers is not the long-term answer for this team. Clearly not. He's just kind of a step in, maybe these last 4 games, depending on Riley Leonard's situation. Everyone's kind of forgotten about him over these last few days, but he is still a factor there. Hopefully he can, or not hopefully, but maybe he can beat out Phillip Rivers. We don't know how that's going to go, but I don't know if it definitely doesn't open the door for Brady. With him being part owner of the Raiders, he has the Fox job. He's on like a $500 million contract or some crazy shit there, so he ain't coming. Even though guys do come out of the booth to play, we've seen it with Jason Witten. John Gruden came back to coach, but Brady, I mean, hell, he's almost 50 years old. He ain't gonna come back. Now, he's probably a little jealous Phillip got the call and he's coming back out there and playing. I'm sure shit he is. Cam the same. Manning, Breeze, even though they can't really come back out and play, those guys wish they could get a call and come back out there and play. They're probably a tad bit jealous, but yeah, I don't think Kaepernick. Kaepernick has just been in like a bunch of drama with the NFL for a long time. Again, I don't speak of the political standpoints here on this podcast just due to, I ain't trying to get into none of that, but, clearly teams are just not interested with all the drama and everything going on there. So, Kaepernick will never play again, most likely. So Falcons and Buccaneers, Thursday Night Football, got that all mixed up there. Falcons and Bucs, a little bit of a prediction here tonight I just want to make for you guys real quick. This is a massive spot for the Buccaneers. The only massive spot for the Falcons is like, can Raheem Morris keep his job? I think regardless, even if they won out, Raheem Morris is a dead man walking in Atlanta. I think he will be gone from the Atlanta Falcons organization quite literally an hour after the season ends. I think they're just going to keep him the rest of the year to this point to just, hell, we're paying this guy. We might as well just keep him to play it out the rest of the season. And I understand that, but there's no way they can hold on to Raheem Morris after this season. So really the only thing I think there is those guys just kind of playing for pride at this point, and Raheem Morris trying to take any chance he can get to try and keep his job. Arthur Blank is pretty easily persuaded. So, maybe there's a chance Raheem Morris keeps his job, but, I don't think so there. But that's the only thing the Falcons really have to play for. And to ruin the hopes of the Buccaneers making the playoffs, there's nothing more they'd love than to beat Tampa on a Thursday night and see Carolina win this week and, take Tampa out of the mix there. So, that's really the only thing the Falcons have to play for. The Bucs, though, are in a pretty desperate spot. They've dropped a lot of their games. They're tied with Carolina now for first place in their division, and they've just fallen apart. I've been kind of out on Tampa Bay, to be honest with you. Baker's been hurt. Kind of reminds me of a few years ago on Cleveland, like his last year in Cleveland when he had that shoulder injury. You know, uh, he didn't look like himself. He's clearly he ended up sustaining some sort of shoulder injury against the LA Rams a few weeks ago. Kind of hasn't been himself since. And even before that, like that team was kind of starting to drop a lot of games anyway. But they do have Mike Evans back tonight, I believe. So that is a huge boost for their offense. They really needed that. He is a massive factor for that team. So maybe they'll get the right foot going forward there. But you know, time's running out for Tampa to get this thing going. Although one thing I've always said, if they can manage to pull off a win tonight, teams that get hot right about now are the most dangerous teams in the NFL. And because this is the perfect time to get momentum going. After this week, there'll be like 3 games left for all these teams on their schedules. I don't think there's any more bye weeks. And this is the time to get hot. This is the time to get your players back. The only thing I worry about is the Tampa Bay secondary and their defense isn't necessarily the best in the world. You know, Todd Bowles does call up a really good blitz, but they have some to be desired between their secondary crew and even their linebacking crew, to be honest with you. So they have to hope they can get Baker back to 100% fully healthy. I think Evans being back in the lineup certainly helps. They've had Irving back up for a few weeks. Ibuka, they need to kind of get him going again. Chris Godwin still kind of getting going. So if there's a time to get hot, Tampa has to start it tonight. I will say I do think Tampa's going to win because it is a desperate situation. Kirk Cousins has just been terrible. He is clearly past his peak years in this league, and he is in his twilight years. He has just looked awful with Atlanta so far this year, and even the last couple of games last year. But you got to remember, he tossed for over 500 yards on Tampa Bay last year as well. So maybe he finds some juice left in the tank. These divisional games do always get weird, but he looked terrible against the New York Jets last week. Or I don't know if it was last week or the week before that, but he looked really bad. So I'm going to take the Bucs to win this game. I think it's going to be kind of an ugly game. I'm going to take them to win 28-14 or 28-17 over the Atlanta Falcons tonight. I think it's going to be kind of a weird game. Divisional games are always kind of closer. I could maybe see it being 28-24 as well, but I'm going to kind of keep it within that 1-2 score range there for the Falcons and Bucs tonight. Last thing I kind of want to talk about here today, are the OKC Thunder going to be the greatest team in NBA history? They're clearly right now, they just tied the Golden State Warriors in terms of the best start for a team in NBA history, 24-1, and I think they just beat the Suns by like 50 points last night. If you look at their last couple of games, they're not even really competing with NBA teams anymore. I mean, they're just that good. And you know what the crazy part about it all is that with how bad the Clippers have been, that they have the Clippers first round pick this year unprotected, and they have a chance of getting the number 1 overall pick in the draft in a loaded 2026 NBA draft with, what's his name? AJ, I don't want to butcher his last name, out of BYU, Boozer out of Duke. Like, there is some high talent, like generational talent coming out of this draft this year. And it's like multiple picks. So even if they don't get the number 1 overall pick, like if they just get a top 5 to 4 pick, I mean, this team, this is just nuts what they're doing. I think they're going to have the greatest rebuild in sports history. I mean, they have a dynasty on the way. There's no doubt about it. Now, in terms of them being the greatest team in NBA history this year, they're definitely on pace to do so. And unless Shea gets hurt, Chet gets hurt. I mean, you have to remember something, like Jalen Williams missed a pretty big amount of time with this team at the start of the season. I think he missed the first 15 to 20 games or something like that. And they are still 24-1, even when their second best player was out. Mind you, they have Lou Dort. I mean, they have just guys that I've never heard of in my life. I can't even remember his name. It was like this white guy wearing goggles. Came in and scored 17 in the first quarter the other night. They can turn any player into looking like an all-star. I think it goes beyond, the Clippers, who clearly had changed the Oklahoma City's trajectory as an organization around themselves. But their coaching, the way they draft, their GMs are on another level. I mean, they really are. I mean, just they moved off of Westbrook, they moved off of Paul George, they moved off of all of those guys when they needed to. They didn't hold on too long, which is what a lot of organizations do. Is like when they can get value for certain players, when they know they're just kind of stuck in purgatory of being a first or second round team. Oklahoma City took that and said, look at these offers we got. We are rolling with it. They took Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who is now on pace to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's an MVP. Yeah, maybe a chance to get a second MVP this year. He's a really big piece in terms of their turnaround, of course. Had one of the greatest seasons in sports history last year. Yes, I know he's a free throw merchant, this and that, whatever it is. But I've watched him. His mid-range is deadly as hell. I do get the flop in, whatever, you know. But what this organization has done turning this franchise around in a matter of a couple of years, and that they have a chance of getting the number one overall pick this year is just nuts. I mean, I can't even put it in words. That they're on pace to be the greatest team ever and could have the number one overall pick in the draft. The league is in shambles, and it has come out in multiple reports that that multiple executives and GMs around the league are terrified for because of Oklahoma City. That, like, is this team going to become unbeatable at some point? They're on pace, man. I think this team could potentially break the record. I don't think they're going to be 81-1 or anything like that, but this team may finish with 6 losses or something like that. I mean, I don't know who's going to beat them. Apparently, I think they played the Spurs in the in-season tournament finals coming up here in a few, but I mean, I could imagine they're going to cruise through that, and win the NBA Finals. So this team is just ridiculous. And they have Chet locked down. They have SGA locked down for years. They have Jalen Williams locked down for years. I mean, the second they won that Finals, they signed all those guys like $200 million contracts. So, yeah, the Thunder are going to be an issue for a while, and especially this year. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, man, that's all I got for you guys today. As I mentioned, it's been a hell of a week. Got my 22nd birthday tomorrow. And as I mentioned earlier with my grandma, keep a thoughts and prayers there for her. You know, so it's just been an incredibly busy week with finals and everything and all this stuff going on. But always pushing out content for you guys. So if you guys like the video, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And as always, y'all, take it easy, and I'll see you all on the next one.